I can't say I'm the biggest fan of banks or bankers in general, but there are exceptions to that rule, and that would be food banks. And that's our topic of discussion today. I'm Dan MacLennan. Welcome to FaceTime. My guests here in the studio and joining us by phone in Powell River, starting with Lynn Nash, president of the Campbell River Food Bank Society, has been for a long time. Jeff Hampton, president of the Comox Valley Food Bank Society, and on the phone, Gina Kendrick, who is manager of the Powell River Food Bank. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's try and set some parameters here. How long, Lynn, has the Campbell River Food Bank been in existence?
Well, we started talking about it about 1981, and we looked at developing a constitution and doing all those kinds of things, forming a society, all that kind of stuff. When we got underway, I guess you could say, in early 1983.
Was there a specific catalyst, driver behind the move at that particular time?
Well, the early 80s were not a particularly prosperous time for a lot of folks here in Campbell River, and so we decided that this would be something that we could try on a temporary basis to help alleviate some of the problems that folks were having. And we're still trying to temporarily alleviate those problems 20 some odd years later, or 30 some odd years later practically.
So like income tax, this was going to be a temporary measure.
That's right. That's right.
Gina, how far back does the Campbell River or the Powell River Food Bank go?
Well, Powell River, actually it began about 1985, and they became incorporated in 1987. And it started actually as a Powell River Unemployed Action Center food bank, and it didn't start as a food bank. It was the Unemployed Action Center because in 1986, I believe, was the first huge layoff at McMillan-Bladel. 400 people were laid off, and nobody actually believed they wouldn't be called back. But the reason they started was BCGEU that started Unemployed Action Centers to teach people to do things like the ones in Powell River were used to be in out of school and into the mill, and it was trying to get people aware that that was not going to be happening for too much longer. And so they had to have things like being able to make a resume and apply for a job because nobody really knew how to do that. So BCGEU allowed coordinators to come into these areas, and then it became like a coffee morning. And then actually the MP's assistant worked next door, and she saw the need because some of these guys didn't have enough food for the end of the week. So other people started bringing little pieces of food, and then we heard about food banks in other places, and that's how our food bank began.
Jeff Hampton, Comox Valley Food Bank Society. How far back does that go?
Okay, the Comox Valley Food Bank started very similar to Powell River's in that it started under the auspices of the Comox Valley Action Center and the Comox Valley Committee for the Unemployed for the similar reasons of trying to educate people to help them out with jobs, etc. We had a woman approach the original Action Center in the fall of 1983, and the food bank came about and started open to the public in December of '83. It also was a very temporary program, and it's still filling a temporary program, and we've been in operation now for 28 years. We've been an incorporated society since August of 1984.
How big an area does the Comox Valley Food Bank Society serve?
Okay, the same size as School District 71, from Cook Creek in the south to the Oyster River in the north, Hornby, Denman Islands, and everything in between. South of Cook Creek is run by the Parksville Food Bank with the Salvation Army, and north of the Oyster River is Campbell Rivers.
Campbell River covers how big an area?
Well, I guess you could say School District 72, but the Black Creek area is a bit of a gray area. We have a few of your clients that come up our way, but food banks, by and large, document the situation rather closely, and so there aren't too many that use both food banks. But by and large, it's the Campbell River area We've helped Gold River, who have their own food bank now. Sayward started one up, and I don't know whether they're still running or not, but it was a tiny one. They're economically developing up in Sayward now, since Western has moved their log sort up there. So things are looking up for Sayward. And Gold River, I mean, they have a big log sort over there too, of course, but they have a food bank over there. And the North Island has, Port McNeill and Port Hardy have had smaller ones over the years. And as I say, I'm not sure whether they're still running or not.
Gina, how big an area does Powell River cover?
We go from Saltry Bay to Lund, Savory Island, Texada Island, and that's about our area. It's quite a big area, and we do have other places that give out food, but it's sort of like the Salvation Army here will give a hamper once every 3 months. And other places like churches and stuff, people can go there, but the food bank is the main place that people come for food. It doesn't sound like a big area, but people are always amazed that over 700 people a month come to the Powell River Food Bank. And that's people that have lived in Powell River forever. And it's always amazing to them that that many people need to use a food bank.
Over 700 a month?
Yeah.
How does that compare, Lynn, to Campbell River, for example?
We are somewhere in between 1,200 and 1,500 a month.
And Jeff?
We're feeding over 1,200 people a month, plus people coming in on a daily basis. It's about averaging about 130 people a week.
Now, you people are very much the front line. As you say, you keep good track of things, and so you can see trends. That amount that you're feeding now, Lynn, how does that compare to, say, last year, the year before?
It hasn't changed much from last year. It's moving up slowly, but not as dramatically as it did the couple of years before that. And we went from 800-900 to 1,200, between 1,200 and 1,500 over a period of probably 2 years. And I'm not sure exactly why that happened. I mean, we can look at the fishing industry, the forest industry, the mill going down, Timber West going down, Raven Lumber going down, Ocean Blue going down. There's a litany of it. And so a lot of people don't want to leave to go to Fort Mac or wherever it may be, although the recent data tells me that there are over 400 people in the Campbell River area now who are doing the commute. So, but they don't want to leave Campbell River, by and large. I mean, there of course are exceptions. But,
Jeff, the numbers you're serving now, how have they changed?
It's staying rather steady right now. It's come up over the last few years, but it seems to be fairly steady right now. Again, we have people coming in because the weather's milder. They come out to the West Coast, so we got people always moving out, and we got people that have had their career in Alberta because we have WestJet connection. We have people that live in the valley and work in Alberta, but we also have the air base, which we have. It keeps our community going as well.
Gina, those 700 a month, how does that compare to, say, the last few years?
Well, in 2011, it was like probably about the same. There was no growth at all. I'm noticing this year there's a little bit more people, but I think it's also because of the weather. When the cold weather is here, we seem to get a heck of a lot more people, and especially this last month with the new wonderful hydro meters that went in. People's bills went, some of them from $200 a month to $700 for some reason, and that's a hell of a lot to catch up with. Excuse me, that's a lot of money to catch up with when you're only getting $610 a month. So I noticed a lot of difference. But in 2008, since 2008, we've probably grown about by 26%. That's what I found out in our hunger count this year. That's how much it's changed. So it seems to be going up. It's a roller coaster because a lot of people have been moving to Alberta where there are jobs from here, and then we've still got almost the same amount because there are new people coming in. So it is a little bit of a roller coaster. It's up and down. And also what I notice is when people get enough money, they don't use the food bank. So some months we'll have 1,100 people, and some months we'll have 600 people. And that depends, like if an HST check comes out, less people use the food bank, which proves to me that people come because they absolutely need it. And I don't know about other food banks, but in this town, everybody, the first frequently asked question would be, how many people come to the food bank who don't need food? And my answer is always none. It's not a badge of courage to come to the food bank. It's not a shame either, but it's not something that you strive for in your life. It certainly wasn't something that I strived for in my life, and it just happens. And I think people are not really aware in our town that there's a huge recession going on everywhere. I don't think people have come to that realization. We are pretty isolated, and if people don't get away very much, they don't understand. Like when I lived in Vancouver, you could understand and you could see what was happening, but in Powell River, it was almost insular, you know. And I think when they realized what was happening, it was almost too late, and everybody was aghast. So I think that it's unfortunate that food banks have to be here, but they really do have to be here because there are so many people in need.
Well, it's a good thing you mentioned that too, because once again we sent out our intrepid FaceTime streeter team to find out some public opinion. And the question we sent out with the team was, why do we need food banks? This was supposed to be a temporary measure. Let's have a look at that.
Okay.
I think they're unfortunately a very necessary thing right now. They're fulfilling a need, and I think they're going to have an increasing part in feeding the people who are homeless or out of work or whatever. So yeah, no, I'm all in favor of them, and I'd like to see people supporting them.
Well, I think they're a great idea. I think more people need to contribute to them because it seems like a lot of people need the food banks more than ever. I've been there, done that.
It's very sad that we need one. I mean, you know, there's not enough money and it costs too much for food. And it's cheaper to buy junk food than healthy food, which is even sadder. So it's very, very sad, and I think that it's the government's responsibility. There's other countries where there are no food banks because everybody that lives there has enough food. So we should look at other countries and see what they're doing.
Well, I think they're very necessary. There's some unfortunate people, and it's great to see contributions. So, yeah, I hope everybody keeps it up for those that need it.
So many people are so unfortunate and can't really afford groceries. It's just great to have this place to turn to for food when you need it.
Sometimes, like, there are families who can't afford to, to get food because, like, the prices of things are going up. You know, prices of gas, prices of hydro, insurance, and stuff like that, and the rent. You know, and with the amount that people get who are like, low income, they don't really have much choice. You know, and it's hard to see any child sit there and starve and stuff like that. So I find the food bank being a very important thing. You know, it is. It's a very important thing.
There's lots of low-income people in the valley that definitely need food banks, and just in general. I don't know, I've been somebody who's had to go to the food banks in the past, so I know how important it is.
We have people that are having one hell of a time not only making a meal, but making a decent one. And that's a sad thing, especially for the children.
I guess in the old days they would have people who would give to each other, take over casseroles or whatnot to other people. And nowadays, well, they don't do that because it's so, we're so cosmopolitan, I guess.
Because there's not enough work out there to keep everybody going. Yeah, economy's gone down the crapper, and for a lot of people, it's just not a way to live. It's not that they should be there because this is Canada, for Christ's sakes. This is not a third world country. So why we have them, I haven't got a clue. That's up to the politicians to figure out, and they're not doing a very good job of it. And I think people should say something about it and do something about it.
Well, there you have it. It seems to be roundly accepted that we need food banks. And yet there's also that feel that, well, gee, in the old days, we didn't need food banks. We were maybe better at looking after each other. I know that's a heck of a question to tackle, but let's just go around here. Reaction to what you saw those people saying, starting with Jeff. People are very accepting of the need for food banks.
Yes, food banks have become part of society nowadays. And in ways it's unfortunate that's happened, but at the same time, it's a good thing that they are there. I found it can be a political issue, it can be a society issue, that there should be more being done in a society level to alleviate the situation we're in. But that is subject for a whole different day. It's not, it can get into it heavily, but that's not why we're here today. But food banks have unfortunately become part of our society. There is some good parts to it too, in that a lot of food that was going to waste or being considered not perfect for fair to sell is being channeled to the food banks, and it is going to the people.
Now, Lynn, you've been at this in Campbell River right from the beginning. Have you seen over that period of time an attitude change? Like, did you face opposition and resistance when you first started that isn't there now?
Oh yes, and as a matter of fact, your interviews there, I'm surprised that there wasn't one somewhere along the line who said, no, we don't need food banks. There's a lot of deadbeats out there, and they're taking advantage of the system. And indeed, there are people who abuse the food bank. I call them the 1%ers. Yeah. And we're not supported by the government, any government for that matter. We do have gaming funds, which, is that government money? I'm not sure. Anyway, we do have gaming funds that help us with our cash flow. But so our regulations, our bylaws that we've set out, don't have government input. In other words, you can't receive this if you don't do that, or whatever. There's none of that. So if someone comes in and they say they're hungry, they want a food package, they get a food package. And whether we look at them and say, gee, big strapping fella like you, how come you're not out there looking for a job? And until you walked in somebody else's shoes, which not many of us are able to do, it's hard for us to criticize somebody, because you don't know what circumstances that big Dan MacLennan strapping fella is, what kind of circumstances he has come from. So, and the board often said to our manager, don't get into a wrangle with somebody who you don't think should be there. Give them their food package, and if they are abusing the system, they'll get tired of it after 1 or 2 times and go on their merry way. If you create a scene with them, they'll be back again for sure. But as far as the recipients are concerned, we have quite a turnover, and I would say we're probably in the neighborhood of 30 to 40% turnover. People come in, they'll use it for 2 or 3 or 4 times, and then something happens, whether their checks came in or they got a job or who knows. They don't use it, and they don't come back, and some of them never come back, and then they may come back 2, 3, 4, 5 months from now and use it again for a little bit. For some folks, a certain portion, it's become part of their budgeting process. Single parents, for example, I use the term single mums because that's what we generally use, but single dads too, for that matter. Will come in and they've got 2 or 3 little kids, oftentimes preschoolers, and they're on social assistance of some type or other, and they have, and that doesn't supply a lot of the amenities for people. It's pretty close to the line after you pay your rent, and so a birthday comes up. Well, they can't buy a present. They can't buy a cake. It just doesn't work. So they'll come into the food bank. And that food package they get, which is $30, $40, $50, whatever it may be worth at that particular time, again, depending upon our donations from the grocery stores, because if they give us high value stuff, the value of the food package goes up. Anyway, they'll get that food package, and that gives them an extra $15 or $20 that they can spend on a cake or a present for the children. Yes, it's become an institution. It doesn't surprise people when you talk about food banks anymore. It's the comment oftentimes comes to me there, but for the grace of God go I. Or as a couple of the interviewees said, yeah, I've been there, and now I've got a job, or now I'm not there, but I've been there. So there were a couple of those people who have used the food bank.
Gina, how about Powell River? You've been there for quite some time. Have you seen a shift in attitudes over that point of time?
Oh, a major shift in attitudes, but I think also it's because of things like the Canadian Association of Food Banks and this Food Banks British Columbia. I think that helps us, like with Jeff and with Lynn, all get together and have one loud voice instead of just, I mean, the ads on TV help a lot. Shock helps a lot. And in our local communities, when they do an interview with me on here, I notice that the people become more aware of what's happening, or they might not think of it, and then our donations go up. And I think that it's unfortunate, but thank God we have food banks. I think that, if we don't want to get political, but unfortunately we have to, I think that the lobbying that the Canadian Association of Food Banks is doing is helping all of the food banks and maybe making governments become more aware of the need of the people.
Gina, did I hear you earlier saying that it was through using the food bank that you've become involved in the food bank?
Oh yes. I had a job. I had a really good job, as a matter of fact, and then I had to go into the hospital. I was on a contract, and I had to be in hospital for quite a period of time, so my contract wasn't renewed. I had just bought a house. I just had a car, and when I got out of the hospital, no job, and so EI didn't kick in for a while, and I had to go to the food bank. And the first time I actually used to work, I had clients who worked at the food bank. I was a transition worker in mental health, and I'd always come to the food bank to talk to my clients. And when I had to come and use the food bank, it was a very humbling experience. I felt so awful. I remember sitting around for 2 hours before I actually said that I would like some help. And they were so kind because they understood. I don't know about the other places, but in Powell River, what seems to have happened here, everybody who works here has sat on the other side of the desk, and they understand what it feels like. And we have a lot, and how they feel about it is they're paying the community back for the help that they've received, and I think that's a really good thing. That's one of the reasons I'm here too, because the food bank has helped me when I really needed it. And I remember driving home that day crying my eyes out and thinking, I can't just take this and not do anything. And so that's how I became a member, and that was 18 years ago. And thank God they let me stay on, because it's become almost, I don't know, my passion, I guess. I think of nothing more than helping people. I have no children, but I have a whole community here that I can help, and it feels really good.
Lucky for others, that passion exists. Jeff, you must see that in, I suspect both you gentlemen see that, in the Comox Valley, Jeff.
Yes. I've been involved with the Comox Valley Food Bank for 28 years, and I've seen a lot of changes over the years. And one thing I noticed, again politically, is when doing statistics, we found that for a long time, for many years, 62% of our clients were on social assistance, and when the government changed the policy for dealing with social assistance, the percentage went down to 49%. And what has happened is we are getting part-time employed people, full-time employed people, self-employed people, and a lot of people with no income coming in and using the food bank. It's a real interesting change because it's telling me that it's we're very close. A lot of us are very close to losing our income and ending up there.
Could the food bank operate without all the volunteers?
No, it couldn't. We have a core staff of about 35 to 40 volunteers, and last year they put out over 20,000 hours of volunteer time.
That's impressive. Lynn, same thing here?
Yeah, it gets interesting because my board are also all volunteers. And you know, this interaction, interface between boards and employees, if you will. Boards are supposed to operate the railroad, and employees, or volunteers in this case, are supposed to run the trains. So it makes for interesting board meetings sometimes.
As long as the trains run on time.
I have that too. I have volunteers that are also board members and part-time employees. And again, we've all been there. We know what it's like. We've had a lot of volunteers have been recipients, including myself. So we know what it's all like and what it feels like.
And one of the reasons we're here today is because Hunger Awareness Week is May 7th to the 13th, and Shaw TV has been involved, and they've launched a campaign called Together is Amazing, Help Fill the Food Banks. And we've got a clip here to explain what that's all about.
We've had a lot of fun with Together is Amazing this year here in Campbell River. We started off by holding a little internal competition where we created 3 teams and we went head to head to see who can raise the most amount of donations food-wise for so that went over really, really well. There was a lot of fun interaction inside the office, and together we raised 2,300 pounds, so pretty cool stuff there. And then the girls up front decided to do an Easter basket and take donations, which would get you a ballot to win this phenomenal basket. And that raised over $130. So they decided, let's keep that going. Let's do another one. So we've got a Mother's Day one going on right now. We've already raised $130, and we still have probably a week to go. And we're going to continue into June. We're not going to let Together is Amazing die at all here in Campbell River. We're going to do a man basket for Father's Day, and we know that's going to be a huge success as well. Yeah, we've recently also hooked up with Discovery Foods out in Willow Point here as a drop-off point, and that with our retail location here, we plan for big donations from our community here until the end of Together is Amazing, and we also will be taking some monetary donations as well, so it's not just about food. So that's what we've got going so far in Campbell River, and we're really excited about what we've done so far, and yeah, Together is Amazing.
We have a couple more things in the works. We'll be on location at the mall with the food bank, and we'll be doing collections of food while we're there. That's on May the 7th and 8th. We'd also like to encourage anybody that is willing to come on down and make a donation at our office at 4706 Ewing Place. We're here from 7 in the morning till 4:30 Monday through Friday. We also have a drop-off box at the Dollar Store with More in the Crossroads Shopping Center. And either place, anything you can do for us, we and the food bank would really appreciate it. We've also been to the schools, and so far we've had Assumption School actually come and with a fairly large box of food and to add to our totals. We've also had a couple of customers, you know, one of our favorite customers has been back twice with substantial deposits of food, so it's all in all has been really good. But we got a couple, 3 weeks left till we want to see it grow a lot more than what it is.
Come on, it's supposed to be in a perfect fit. There we go.
So we're here on a Sunday morning at Quality Foods with the team from Shaw. We've got Mike and Dave and Victoria and yourself, of course. And we're raising money for the food banks. We've got raffle baskets, hot dogs with onions. That was a big discussion. It's gorgeous. We're doing really well and we're having a lot of fun.
How are the onions today, Mike?
The onions, what we didn't think were going to go over very well, are an unadulterated hit for sure. So next year we'll know, no questions about the onions. We have to have onions.
What was that last dog I saw you cooking?
That was a tofu dog, and weren't sure we're going to need any of those either. But apparently they're fairly popular also. So next year we'll also have some tofu dogs. And people are really, really happy to donate. I mean, primarily we're getting most cash, which is great. We can buy, you know, what the food banks really need because we have a list of what they really need, and so we can use that, put that to good use. But people are very generous and are very thankful that they don't have to use the food bank. So we're very appreciative, and yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, well, they were
Certainly one of the upsides to changing attitudes around food banks is that there are so many organizations out there now, Shaw included, as we've seen, who are stepping up and looking for ways to help. You certainly can't feel like you're out there on your own.
Oh, certainly not, Dan. As a matter of fact, I recall when we first started paying the rent for our facility for a couple of months. When times were really tough and we were banging on doors, and food bank was a new idea at that time. And if you recall, at one stage of the game, Campbell River had the highest per capita income in Canada, not just in the province or on the island, in Canada, when everything was going fine. And of course, that mentality that because we've always had strikes and layoffs and fire seasons and all those kinds of things. This too shall pass, and we'll be back to where we were before. Well, it didn't happen. So that mentality about food banks and, wow, what do we need a food bank for? This, you know, we'll be fine. It took a while to overcome that, and so eventually I did get my money back from paying for the rent.
That's good.
But anyway. We had to beat on doors and we had to go to the schools. The schools, of course, at the beginning, and still for that matter, at the beginning, they were our prime, let's say, fundraisers and food suppliers and that sort of thing. They still have food drives rather around October, Thanksgiving. That's the time. But food bank here, and I would suggest in Powell River and Comox Valley as well, has become the charity of choice for a lot of organizations in the community. They're a fact of life. People know they're run by volunteers. They know there's a very low administrative cost to them because, as I say, it's run by volunteers and you have 1 or 2 employees, whatever it may be. And so that when I donate my $100 or whatever it may be, I know that 85% of it isn't going for administration, that it's going for the reason that I gave it. So we all have freezers that use hydro, and we have a telephone, and it's a business, and you got to have a computer and all the rest of those kinds of things. But a lot of that stuff is donated, and we continue to operate on that basis. But as I say, it's become the charity of choice. We'll have organizations coming in and bring us in a check, or they appear at the door, banging on the door and say, we got a truckload of stuff here. We held a fundraiser, whatever it is, a benefit a week ago. And we didn't even know anything about it. So it's become the charity of choice for a lot of organizations. And thank heavens it has, because those of us that are involved in it, we get tired after a while of banging on doors and doing all that kind of stuff. And you lose managers when they have to go out and beat the drums and do all that sort of stuff. We still do it, but not as frequently as we used to. And as I say, it's become a fact of life. And unfortunately, it has, but fortunately for those people who are receiving the service, we do have them.
Jeff, same thing, Comox Valley.
Yes, very similar. Yeah, we started out way back when we used to cut firewood and sell firewood to raise funds to keep operating. I remember going to my boss at one time, and he would tell me on the Monday, I had so much money to spend, and I'd have the Thursday to get it in order to have enough food for a distribution day on the Fridays. And over the years, that's changing. A lot of supermarkets, they're giving us the food that would in the old days would go to waste. We're getting a lot of donations. We've had the air base, the military, the different squadrons come up with promotions for us, and it's changing over the years. It has changed a lot.
Gina, same thing, Powell River?
Pretty much the same thing. We are all volunteers. We have no paid people at all. Our overhead is really low, and because I'm the manager, I feel totally accountable to the people in the town, and so they are kept aware of, especially like personal, when people bring us a donation, they want it spent for something. When we send their tax receipt, we let them know, like I write personal letters to them and thank you cards, and let them know how their money was spent, and I think people appreciate that, and they know that it's not going to, well, unfortunately we don't have Shaw telephones here, or we would have one, but our phone bill is like $96 a month, and I can never understand that, because we have a one line, no frills, but they won't treat us like a charity, they treat us like a business.
Gee, and we called collect. Oh, just kidding. Sorry.
Thank you. And I really think that the food banks, because they've been together, they've sort of been in a conglomeration, which is great. It lets other people know that we're a viable place, and so people are willing to bring their donations here. And I find the stores in Powell River are terrific. Every week we do pickups at Safeway and Save On More, and Mitchell Brothers is one of our local stores, and Quality Foods. They are all even the smaller businesses are absolutely wonderful. We get things like last month we had like ice cream for everybody, for the children. We got like 100 liters of ice cream from Safeway, and we also had paper towels and toilet paper, and it was like just the most wondrous month that happened. Because when you give someone a roll of toilet paper, it's almost like giving them gold. So we have people doing that. I have people now, not I, but we have people who are couponers, who are really into couponing in a big way, and they're bringing us things that we don't usually get, like deodorant and shampoo. We get it when it's older, they change the packaging. But these are like brand new ones, and so it's really exciting to see the change that people have when they're bringing things to the food bank.
Is it tricky? Is it trickier in the 1 mill town when the mill goes down? And now
when
I know
the mill goes down, well.
Or when the mill goes down in size, which you've seen in Powell River.
When the mill goes down in size, we see a big shift. Like we call it fill the bus every year. We do a fill the bus, and the municipality supplies the bus, and we get people to donate. On that day. And we've been pretty lucky over the years. And 2 years ago, we dropped by our donations by 40%. And Christmas is our big time for donations, especially cash donations. And it dropped so drastically. And I thought, oh my God, people will be getting a can of soup and a loaf of bread. But Powell River rallied around, and before you knew it, our shelves were full again. And so I'm so thankful for the people. I think the people who give to the food banks understand what it's all about. It's not so somebody can have a high-paying job, because, well, I put in about 200 hours a month. That's one of the things I do here. And that's because when I have nothing else to do, I come to the food bank and do things. And I'm really excited about this Hunger Awareness Week. We have so many things planned and things that we're doing them along with Shaw on the 7th and 8th at the mall, and we're having an information booth, and we're doing it at Safeway on the 11th. So we have a lot of things that are going on here, the handouts and our numbers. People don't believe how many people come to this food bank. They can't believe that many people need help in Powell River. And so this this is a way of letting them know. It's really, really important.
Now you've all been doing this for a long time. Have you seen changes in the face of the food bank in terms of the people that the food bank is serving? Lynn.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. We'll get to you, Gina, too.
Okay.
Lynn.
It fluctuates. At certain times of the year, or in the past year, we've had a large number of young singles who, some of who have dropped out of school, have left home for whatever reason, homeless. A lot of young people fit into that category. At other times of the year, you'll get, and of course of the month, for those on social assistance, you'll find particularly young families where there's oftentimes just one parent, and seniors. Everybody's saying, well, you know, we're getting this huge number of seniors in our population now. We do have seniors coming in, but I don't think we're overwhelmed by seniors. By and large, it's folks who have lost their jobs and have been unsuccessful for a long period of time to acquire one again, to secure a job. And for many of them, they've just given up. They've just given up. Some of those folks we see. So it fluctuates. The profile fits the whole population as far as age group. We have, and these are the ones that I'm concerned about, is the children, and we probably have about again varying anywhere between 25 and 35% are children. So those are the ones. It's not their fault, you know, and we can say that about a lot of adults and young people as well. But certainly for children, it's not their fault. So, and people understand that, even those who are critical of food banks and so on, they understand if it's children. That's.
So Jeff, have you seen similar changes or changes at all in that profile?
I've seen the changes as well. Like, we've been in operation for almost 30 years. I've seen like 3 generations of people coming in. I've seen young people that have grown up and had their own families, and some of them are grandparents now, and their grandchildren are using the food bank. When we first opened, there was I noticed a tendency for young people to avoid the food bank. There was sort of like the social stigma attached, and that has changed as they've become parents and not been able to get work and have children, and then having to need the food banks themselves. And it's changing where the children are more and more aware of what we're doing. Again, in the past, the seniors that had gone through the war years and the 30s and had experienced hunger knew how to look after themselves and did. And we didn't see too many of them, but that is changing now too. We're seeing more and more seniors that are accessing our services, and the demographics in the valley are changing more to a retirement area, where we're getting more and more seniors moving into the area, and young people coming to try and get jobs but unfortunately in the service industry, they're low-paying jobs. So we're seeing more and more of different age groups coming in. Last fall, we had one of the local schools did a thank you tour around the valley. They went to the fire hall and the city hall and a bunch of different places to say thank you. And they came to the food bank, and there must have been about 60 or 70 of them, all in about grade 4, grade 5. And I was talking with them, and then one young boy sticks up his hand and says, "My mother uses the food bank." And within about 5 minutes, a third of them put up their hands and said, "Our parents use the food bank." And that really hit home as to just how widespread the situation is out there.
A third of them. Gina, how about Powell River? Have you seen changes?
I've seen major changes. One of the major changes that I've seen that came up this year, particularly through the hunger count, is two-parent families. It used to be mostly one-parent, single-parent families, but this year it was 26% who were single-parent families, but 22% were two-parent families. And couples with no kids were 12%, and single people 40% of the people that come here. And then when we did the breakdown of post-secondary students and so on, we had like 6% who were post-secondary, 6% who were seniors, and that's moved up in the last 3 years from like 2% of seniors. And it's not anybody's fault that they have to come to a food bank, whether it be seniors or whatever. There are times when you consider that the food went up in the last year and a half by 23%, the real food. I'm talking about not the junk food and the potato chips and stuff, because for some reason that seems to have stayed the same. I'm talking about carrots and potatoes and vegetables and fruit that children should be having. That has gone up by 23%. That's scary to me. I just got an order in today that was $6,000. That same amount, it was nearly $7,000. That same amount of food 2 years ago might have cost me $4,000. So I see one hell of a big change in things. I see a big change in the kids who are going to take in post-secondary school, and they're having to get those student loans. I see a huge change there. And people on disability. And I also find that people who are employed, it used to be like 7% who were employed that had to come to food banks. Now it's 17%. And those people who are employed, who are in employment and have to come to food banks, some of those people have 3 part-time jobs. Nobody's hiring full-time anymore. And so they might have 3 part-time jobs, and they still need to use the food bank. We have one lady in particular who has 3 children. She works part-time at one of the corner stores. She works part-time at one of the local grocery stores. And she works part-time as a gas jockey. And she can't get enough hours in any one place to give her a decent amount of food to feed her children.
And that's going to be one of the misconceptions that you gentlemen see as well, this thought that the only people using the food bank are the people who can't go out and get a job. There's a lot of working people. You must be seeing that here too.
Working poor, yeah.
Working people who, because the wage rates are so low and the hours are spread out, who still can't make ends meet.
No question. It's the term working poor has come into our vocabularies. Like we didn't use that often before. And indeed, there are lots of our clients or recipients, whatever you want to call them, who do have part-time jobs. And when you get a job, as Gina suggested, as a gas jockey, you know, it's minimum wage. And minimum wage doesn't buy very much. So, and we're in the same boat. We've got folks who are in more than one part-time job because they can't get full-time jobs. And companies today don't want to pay the benefits, you know, so they keep people as part-timers. So I don't know what's going to happen when we get to the situation where most of us have come through a situation where we have pensions. You know, we contributed to pensions, whether we were mill workers or whether we were government employees or whatever. But that was the thing. We worked on pensions. Well, now a lot of people are working part-time, and some of the larger firms as well, and they don't want to pay the benefits. So what is going to happen when they get to the stage where they should be, quote, retiring? I'm not sure what's going to happen, because whether old age pension or something like that increases dramatically in order to satisfy that requirement, I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing: it's going to be tough if it doesn't. And food banks are going to be as large as your Walmart over here.
And of course, as we've seen more and more these days, the concept of a guaranteed pension is becoming far and less secure as well. Catalyst being being one of the latest examples. We've got one more clip that I want us to get to before we run out of time. Keeping in mind this is Hunger Awareness Week coming up May 7th to 13th. Part of the Shaw promotion Together is Amazing is called Help Fill the Food Banks, and they've got a clip on YouTube. Let's have a look at that.
Every month, nearly 900,000 Canadians, that's the equivalent to 26 football stadiums full of people, access our food banks. Shaw's Fill the Food Bank 2012 campaign aims to connect Canadians across Canada in the fight against hunger. You can help by watching our Fill the Food Banks video. For every YouTube view, Shaw is donating $1 and Campbell Canada is donating 1 pound of food to food banks across Canada. That's up to $250,000 and 250,000 pounds of food. To find out more and to donate to your local food bank, visit togetherisamazing.com.
If you're like the average Canadian on Facebook, you have about 200 friends, or more, maybe a lot more. You know everything about them, where they work, their relationship status, what songs they're listening to, and where they went on their last vacation. You probably even know the names of their pets, or what they ate for lunch that day. The one thing you probably don't know is that 1 in 35 of those friends is checking into the food bank, and they depend on donations for their daily meals. Every month, local food banks feed close to 900,000 Canadians. Of those, 38% are children. But you can help right now. Every time this video is viewed, Shaw will donate $1 to Canada's food banks, and Campbell Canada will donate 1 pound of food. So share and help us reach 250,000 views. After all, you never know who you might be helping.
So now it's time to play Kings and Queens of the Universe. If you were in charge today, what would you change in order to, well, aside from doing away with food banks altogether, what would be the most helpful thing that could change to make the job of the food bank easier? Is there some help from government, heaven forbid they're listening, that could change?
Well, we've talked.
Go ahead, Gina.
Okay, I think that because Food Banks Canada, or Canadian Association of Food Banks, and Food Banks BC is sort of keeping us all together, I think we have to do what they suggest, which is shout out to your MLA and your MP, tell them what the need is in your particular area and across Canada, because God knows that they should know that, and make them aware that this is not something that we should be depending on people to do. We have a group in town here called the Hunger Security, but it kind of makes me anxious because I can't secure food and guarantee it to people if we have no funding, and we depend on people's charity for the funding. When we make a statement, I send for a grant and aid each year to the municipal council, which is wonderful because they have been really helpful, and so has the regional district, and help and fund us. But if we didn't have that money coming in, we would have nothing that was guaranteed, because the rest is up to people. And now it's like everybody's saying, people are not even sure that their pensions are going to be secured. So those people are the ones that I found anyway. A lot of the seniors are the ones who give because they remember what it was like in the dirty 30s and so on. And if their pensions are not guaranteed, then there's no guarantee at the food bank that there will be food on the shelf, and that's scary.
Jeff, what would help?
What I've been noticing over the years is that there's poverty out there, and it runs in cycles. And we have to start with our children. If we can get them a better nutrition, better food, so they stay in school longer, get an education, but then again, trying to get out and get a decent job with a decent pension attached to it, so they go above and beyond where they are, be able to raise children. Otherwise, this cycle will just keep repeating. You will have people that don't get enough nutrition, they drop out of school early, they start families, they have children that are coming in families that are low income, and the cycle just perpetuates. And we have to change it all. I don't know where, I don't know how, and it's probably going to have to change across all of society. And that is a real daunting task. And I don't really see the government is going to make any moves to do that. So what we do now is just a Band-Aid solution. I don't know. I got into this to help people, and I'm still there helping people, and that's what we're doing. We're helping, but it's a formidable task.
Lynn, what's the solution?
We've talked about this in this country and others for years and years and years, and that is a basic family income. And if that were to be established, and don't ask me how to do that as an ex-politician.
One thing at a time.
I don't want to know about how to do that. There has to be a way to do that. Where there's a will, there's a way. And if that were to be established in this country, then the nature of food banks would change dramatically. Lots of people get into the situation they find themselves through bad luck, bad decisions, whatever. They're there. But if there was a basic family income or individual income for individuals, then the nature of the food bank would change. Because we get a lot of folks now who, they're not on welfare, they're either too proud or they don't know how to do it. And lots of people who just can't make it on the welfare system. So as I say, the nature of food banks would change if there was a basic income for everyone.
I think what I'm hearing from Gina in particular was you guys got to work together too.
We also got to shout out to the MPs and the MLAs when we want something done. We have to let them know that our voices, we have to vote, is what we have to do. We have to get the people who use the food banks to get out and vote. Sometimes the biggest thing that we give out at the food bank is dignity and hope. Even more than the food, sometimes that's important. And I think all working together is really important, but we have to let the people who use our food banks know how important their voice is, because they're so used to being beaten down. And yeah, one solution, let's tax the people who have the most money. How about that? Would that be a real change?
There's a concept.
Obama's going to do that, isn't he?
One thing at a time, Nash.
But that might be a concept. And one thing I'd like to point out is for Hunger Awareness Week, the Food Banks BC is suggesting that give it up for hunger. And that means, like, give something up that you're used to having. Like if you're a person that can afford things, give up something that's really dear to your heart. Like maybe it's that bowl of ice cream before you go to bed. Give it up. Know it's there in your freezer, but you're not allowed to have it because you can't afford it, and you're living like the rest of we people who have to depend on food banks.
I'd like to thank the three of you for giving up some time so that we could have this informative chat. It's been most informative. It's an eye-opener. My guests have been Gina Kendrick, manager of the Powell River Food Bank, Lynn Nash, president of the Campbell River Food Bank Society, and Jeff Hampton of the Comox Valley Food Bank Society. Thanks to all three of you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that we were in on this because it's really important for the food banks to know what the heck's going on in each town. And good luck to all of you with Hunger Awareness Week.
Hunger Awareness Week, May 7th to the 13th. Just a little bit of business to take care of. Viewer comment. We actually got some. After my chat with Freeman Bill Matthews in the last FaceTime, we talked about City Council and the 2012 budget. Sean Smith wrote in and said, I'm so tired of hearing that it's actually only a 7.1% increase. Look, it's 13.6%, period. These offsets are temporary. In 2014, these offsets will return to their original amount. And guess what? That 13.6% increase from 2012 will still be there. Only by that time, it will have been joined by a proposed 8% tax increase in 2013. Of course, we'd like to hear what you think of the show. Here's how. You can like us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/FaceTime4U. That's 4, the number 4. And you can email us at facetime@shaw.ca. That's face-time@shaw.ca. And so ends FaceTime number 8. I'm Dan MacLennan. Thanks for sharing some FaceTime.